Hey kids, it's the Resident Fly here, hope you're well. Today, a chilly old January day, but I'm very excited because I'm on a 2019 bike, a bike I've been wanting to ride for absolutely ages since it got the 1250 engine. Here it is, it's the BMW R1250RT. I've not ridden one of these for years, 2015 since I rode one of these, and I absolutely love the old bike, so I think this one's going to be great. So if you're interested in the 2019 R1250RT, stick around and stay tuned. So here I am aboard the R1250RT. First thing that strikes you when you jump on this beast is just the sheer size of the front of the bike. It's absolutely massive, and it's completely in keeping with other touring bikes of this type. I've been lucky enough to ride a few touring bikes since I last rode the RT, so I've ridden things like the big brother, the big BMW K1600 GT, and the Bagger. I've also recently ridden the 2019 Honda Goldwing, so this is going to be a really good or an interesting ride actually, to see how this compares against those other bikes. As I mentioned in the intro, the big change of course on the RT since I last rode it is it's now got the 1250 engine with the shift cam technology, and that means that immediately you jump on it, the engine just feels super smooth. Now the RT consistently wins awards as the best touring bike. It's going to be interesting to see if I still think this is the one to have. I was blown away when I rode the 2015 model, and the bike hasn't changed that much in terms of its features and functions, and even its looks. It's had a couple of iterations of change. Let's just check the old mirrors and get past this car. But wow, yeah, it's got that new 1250 engine, and it certainly goes better than it used to, so let's just not go too mad. But what a tremendously agile bike for such a big old behemoth. If you've never fancied a pure touring bike or a bike like this, you just think they're too big and lardy for you, I would encourage you to have a go, because they do not feel big and lardy once you're on them. They're designed for a purpose, of course, of travelling long distances in extreme comfort, and they've absolutely nailed it. This big frontal area means that you've got loads of weather protection. I'm just sitting here in a bubble of calm, and on a day like today where it's barely 4 degrees, I've got a nice warm backside because the heated seat is on, heated grips are on, and I'm shielded behind this massive screen. Electrically adjustable, of course. Let's just pop her up a little bit, there we go. Wow, now I've got no wind noise whatsoever. Now this particular bike I'm riding, it comes in various variants levels of luxury, if you like. The RT, just like all the other BMWs, you can get the basic bike, which comes in at something like 14.5 grand, but of course nobody buys the basic bike. Everybody wants more than that offers, and you can get it in SE and LE trim. This is the LE. I think LE probably stands for luxury edition. Comes with a few bits over and above the TE, sorry, the touring edition, which is the bike that probably most people would go for, I would suspect. This one has things like, I can't remember what BMW call it, but the SOS button here, you can call for help if you ever crashed. It does lots of other clever things as well. It's got the fancy ESA suspension. I've already mentioned things like the heated seat and heated grips, which in fact all the bikes come with. But basically they all come, as I say, with different levels of trim. Check out the website if you want all the differences on those, because there are far too many to list in a first impressions review like this. I should put that screen down a little bit, because I don't actually like looking through a screen, even though it gives you a nice calm ride. I like to look over it. And we're going to get onto a slightly quicker road in a moment and just see how it does on faster roads. But in terms of comfort, I've already mentioned it's supremely comfortable. Riding position is a little bit different to what I'm used to. I normally ride a GS, and although it feels very familiar, it's actually, strangely enough and counterintuitively, a little bit more cramped feeling than a GS. Now when I say cramped feeling, it's not cramped at all, it's completely comfortable. But your legs are a little bit higher than they would be if you're on a GS, in that your knees are at a bit more of an acute angle. Well, I forgot how agile these are. Around this roundabout, it's just completely planted. I love it. And the handlebars are a little bit nearer to your knees as well, I suppose, is the other difference I would say. This one, being the LE edition, has Quick Shift Assist Pro, so up and down quick shifter. which works beautifully well now on an older BMW boxers with quick shifters. The gearbox always used to be a little bit agricultural, a little bit clunky, but BMW seem to have really sorted that out now. As smooth as you like. It's very difficult not to go at silly speeds on these sort of bikes. Here I am with the engine barely ticking over, it seems, and I'm doing, well, an indicated 73 with great ease. A consummate continental tourer this certainly is. Right, let's just try putting that windscreen fully up now. I am going at motorway speeds. We'll press the right button. There we go. That's quite interesting. It's fully up now, the windscreen. And I'm getting that slightly odd effect that you sometimes get on these big touring bikes, where I feel like I'm being sucked forward slightly. I've got a theory that that's because the air is tumbling over the top of me and then hitting me on the back and pushing me forward, but with the windscreen fully up, I don't really like it. I'm in a bubble of calm, but I am looking through the screen, which I've already mentioned I don't like. And I'm getting that sort of sucked forward effect, so I'm just going to bring it down. There we go, and it instantly comes off. Alright, I'm going to come off the dual carriageway here, just to see what the bike's like through a bit of town. Up here is Marlow. It's still relatively early in the morning. It's only just after 9 o'clock. So I'm hoping the town will be relatively busy still, and I can just get a feel for what this is like in town. So just while I'm trundling into town here, there's a speed camera here, make sure I am doing less than 30, I am. It's a good chance just to show you this display here. If display is the correct word, it's more like a dashboard actually. It's very car-esque this, and this is quite, is often the case with these touring bikes. But a really lovely presentation, I think, and this looks exactly the same as the RT I rode 3-4 years ago now, the 2015 model. Not much has changed here, except of course we've now got the Nav 6 installed on this bike, which I would recommend you definitely get if you're going for one of these machines. This thing is just a brilliant bit of kit for adding functions to the bike. But the screen here, or rather the display's got absolutely everything you can need. Of course, a proper fuel gauge, I'm glad to say, temperature gauge here, and all sorts of bits and pieces you can bring up here. I can't even scratch the surface of the electronics on this bike on this first impressions review. It's just laden, as you can imagine. To scroll through the various settings, you've got this menu button down here. It's relatively straightforward to use, although I think I would definitely invest some time studying the manual if it was mine. So actually it's not looking as busy through here as I was hoping. I'm recording this just after the Christmas break. You see there's still some Christmas decorations. It's early January. It's about 4 degrees, as I say, quite a cold day. But I'm not even convinced that everybody's back at work yet. So maybe it wasn't a good time just to come out and try and find some traffic. Anyway, it's always nice to come and see Marlow, isn't it? Let's head down this way for a change. Unbelievably light and nimble through the corners. You just think a bike like this is going to be massively heavy to haul around, but it absolutely isn't. So that new 1250 engine in here with the shift cam technology, to be brutally honest, I can't really tell that much difference between that and the 1200 engine. Now, I've not done a back-to-back ride on the old RT with the 1200 versus this. I'm just comparing that on when I rode up to Bahnstormer just now to pick this up. I was on my 1200 GS, which is the original water-cooled model. The reason why I've got this bike is I've just dropped my GS in for its service, the major one. It's done 24,000 miles now, so the engine is well loosened up. Goodness me. And so that bike goes really well. And compared to my very loosened up 1200 GS, this 1250 doesn't feel that much difference. It is a little bit smoother, but not massively so. When the 1250 unit came out, all the magazines were saying what an amazing change it is to the bike, and I agree that it does make the Boxer a smoother engine, and there is more go in the engine, particularly towards the top of the rev range. Day-to-day riding at normal speeds, I mean, here I am tootling along still, it doesn't make a lot of difference other than the smoothness. But things like the, as I said, the Gear Assist Pro is definitely smoother. That works well. That is not in any way, by the way, to decry the engine. It is now a beautiful unit, but it was a beautiful unit anyway. Well, I haven't really got a clue where this road goes, so I may well have to turn around in a minute, because I don't want to get lost. So much for finding traffic. Maybe I'll head down towards High Wycombe and try a bit of traffic down there. Okay, so I've turned around again, heading back in towards Marlow. I'll try and find some traffic elsewhere. But the roads here are quite bumpy and potholy. And the suspension, as you would expect, just absolutely soaks it up a treat. Love the low down position of the mirrors on here. They work beautifully well. Great visibility. Sometimes you end up looking at the backs of your hands with these sort of mirrors, but these ones are great. They are effectively just like car mirrors, so you can see a treat. As you will have noticed, this bike has massive speakers here. This has the entertainment pack as well, radio fitted. Something that I always find a little bit bizarre on a motorcycle. Not my thing, has to be said. But I know some people swear by radios on bikes, so fill your boots, fair enough. Beautifully torquey, this engine. Just wafting along here in third gear. I'm only going less than 30 miles an hour and it's just not complaining whatsoever. Really relaxing ride. Actually, I have a feeling I can get back that way. Let's do a little turn around again. Okay, a little bit of a voyage of discovery. As I mentioned before, I only vaguely know this area, so I've got a feeling I can head back roughly this direction, but this takes me through a little windy country road, so it'll be interesting to see how the bike handles in that situation. This machine has 3 riding modes: road, rain and dynamic. I've got it in dynamic at the moment, which, as you will imagine, is its most sporty setting, if you like. Beautiful note to the engine, it just hums along. If you just put on here and told to guess what sort of engine this is, there's no way you'd guess it was a twin. Or I wouldn't, it's just it's too smooth for that. So around these country lanes then, the big old RT is absolutely fine. There's no drama in riding this bike. It doesn't feel intimidating. It's not difficult to ride. Even though it has got loads of torque and power, it's because of the type of ride it is, it just encourages you to ride sedately. Although you can chuck it around, you don't want to. And that in itself is possibly a good thing. But certainly if you just want it for coming out on Sunday afternoon rides around the country lanes, then that can be done. It's not, its size and weight does not prevent you from doing that. As I say, a completely non-intimidating ride. What a lovely spot, I must come out here more often. That gear shift assist pro works really well on here now. Once again, that massive torque of this engine, I'll go through these specs in a minute when we do the walk around, just comes into its own. As I waft around here, I'm in 4th gear again, and I'm only doing 40 miles an hour. Absolutely no complaints from the big old twin lump. Well, let's just check out the brakes. Just realised I hadn't mentioned the brakes at all. I should get past this cyclist, nothing behind me. Right, front brake. Yeah, beautiful. Really nice stoppers. That wasn't an emergency stop, that was just a fairly reasonable tug. That's... Oh yeah, the brakes work beautifully well. Let's just try the rear, nothing behind me. Oh, actually the rear is very good. Though the ABS just cut in when I prodded it down there, so that works alright as well. But yeah, no problem with the brakes. The controls and switch gear on the RT, very familiar as a BMW owner myself. They're the usual array of BMW buttons. These are the ones that do that, you know, the contact on a PCB. Most modern bikes are like that these days, so there's not a lot of movement in the buttons. They work absolutely fine, but I know on some of the bikes these buttons over time can get a bit sticky. They are on my GS, for example. It will squirt a WD in there occasionally, just keeps them free. I'm not a massive fan of BMW switchgear, but it is laid out in a logical way. So over here on the left, we've got the menu control to switch between the sat-nav and the various parameters you can change on the display. The little diamond on the top there, that's like a favourites button, so you can get to obviously your favourite features and functions quickly. Button here is for the electric windscreen up and down. You've got a cruise control, of course, hazard lights, daylight running lights, indicators and horn in the usual way. Flasher is on the front, and here we've got what I call the whiz wheel that controls both the sat-nav and the rest of the functions on the dash by spinning it and moving it. A brilliant feature, something that is unique to BMWs. On the right hand side we've got that SOS call button. If you have an accident or if the bike thinks you've crashed, it'll phone up BMW and get help to you. Obviously the start-stop button, the mode change button, and also on this one, where normally I might see my heated grips button, on this one it's actually got like a central locking button for the panniers, which is very handy on a machine that you might use for touring. So the switchgear, although it's not the nicest feel about it, it is very logically laid out, and for such a big bike with so many functions, you can get at them all, unlike things like the Triumph Trophy, where it's got a massive buttons that you have to really stretch to with your thumb. These are all easy to get at, so thumbs up for the switchgear. Oh, and down here, of course, these are things like the radio controls as well, if radios on bikes are your thing. Right, let's find a spot to do a walk around on this bike then. It's like a recycling place up here. I wonder if there's a spot that makes sense. There's a little pull in here. Let's do it here. This will be perfect. Again, the agility of this bike just never ceases to amaze. You can just whip it around the corners like that. Brilliant. Alright, let's find neutral. Very easy to do. Stand on this. Easy to get at, but once you kick it forward, you can't see that it's down because it's hidden by the boxer engine. So you've got to sort of trust, make sure it's positively forward with your foot, and then trust it's there before you attempt to put it on its side, of course. And the bike has keyless ignition, so you can turn it off either by pressing the button there or with the kill switch. Either way, you can stop it. And down goes the screen. How cool is that? Excellent. Alrighty then. So here she is, the big old 2019 model here. BMW R1250RT, their touring flagship. I think it's a beautiful looking machine. Let me get the phone out in the usual way and I'll talk you through the specs. Okay, here she is then. I think a handsome looking bike. If anything, as far as the design is concerned, the front end does look a little bit too bulbous. If there's some way that BMW could just make that front end a little smaller, I think it would look better. But overall, particularly from this side view, I think a handsome looking machine. Really nice bike. Anyway, the big news on this bike as far as the changes are concerned, as I mentioned before, is the engine. The new shift cam technology engine on here now putting out, or it's 1254cc, putting out 134 brake horsepower. The older bike was putting out something like 125 brake horsepower, so a considerable hike. Torque-wise, 143 newton meters at 6,250 RPM, or 105 foot-pounds if you're in the old money. Let's check out the brakes on this actually, because again, BMW, like on the GS, on this, on the front, they've gone with BMW branded Hayes calipers as opposed to Brembos like the old bike came with. And on the front here, dual discs of course. These have got 4-pot calipers on a 320mm disc. At the rear, if we can come around here, it's got a single-sided swing arm, which you can't see because of the exhaust, and then you've got a Brembo badged rear caliper. This one is a 2-pot on a 276mm disc. Works an absolute treat. Coarse shaft drive, which is a big deal for BMW owners. Means you don't have to look after a chain, which is a nice thing. And as far as suspension is concerned, it's got what I call the funny BMW suspension. Well, can we see it under there? Basically, look at a wishbone under there. This is what BMW call their telelever suspension, and at the rear, what they call power lever. What that actually means, and of course, it's got the clever electronic ESA as well. But what that basically means is when you apply the front brakes on this bike, you get no fork dive. I absolutely love that funny front end that BMW do. Some people don't like it. I personally do. Some people say it takes some of the feeling away from the bike. I don't find that at all. I just like the way that it makes the handling much more predictable, I think. Seat height on this, 825mm. Beautiful plush seat, as you can see, 2-part, nice load of room for your pillion, and of course heated as well as standard on all variants on this bike, so plenty of comfort there. Weight wise, wet, this bike 279 kilograms, so it is heavy, but as I say, once moving like all these heavy tourers, you just do not feel that weight at all. Tank capacity on here, a very healthy 25 litres, massive looking tank on here, and according to the website, that'll give you something like a 259 mile range out of a fill up, so very useful if you're going to be doing the touring, which presumably you will be on this bike. Standard electronics wise, so you do get heated grips, ABS Pro, ASC, which is BMW's traction control, rain and road riding modes, as I mentioned, the electric screen, all come as standard. And if you want the standard bike, just the RT, according to the website, £14,415. But as I say, nobody goes for the basic bike. The one to have is the LE or the SE. either of those. As I say, this one's the LE, which I think is the luxury edition. Now I won't list all the differences that you get between those models, but basically the SE over the standard gets dynamic ESA, and cruise control. The LE, which is this one, has all the bits, including things like a slightly bigger windscreen. Hill start assist, by the way, comes as standard. As I say, if you want all that detail, do have a look at the website, because there's too much to list. You can get various packages with them as well: a sport package, a touring package, a comfort package, and they come in various colours. They're all fairly muted. If you want the metallics, they're another 1,500 quid as an option. So typical BMW, in that you have to pay extra for all those bits, which is a bit of a shame. Anyway, that's it, I think, as far as the spec is concerned. Basically, I want to jump on and ride her some more, so let's go and see if we can find some more traffic. Well, actually, just before I do get back on the bike and ride some more, let's just see what she's like to move around. So let's see what I mean about the stand being sort of hidden under the front of the engine. Not a big deal, you just got to be aware of it and make sure it's properly down before you put the bike on its side, because you don't want to drop this beast. Okay, so lifting her up off the stand, very easy. Looks like a nice tight turning circle. And yeah, actually a lot easier to move around than you'd think. Feels very similar to my GS in terms of its weight when you're moving it around on your driveway or whatever, so no problems there. Alright, let's jump back on then and see if we can find a bit more traffic to play with, as I say. Okay, let's get this show back on the road then. Let's find that stand. There we go, easy to find with your foot. Bring her back to life. There we go, love that sweeping of the dials as we start her up. And then rightio, that characteristic boxer clunk as you put it in first is still there, so not lacking in character, if that's what we want to call that. These bikes, when you ride them, they certainly make you feel like king of the road. For some reason it makes me feel like Poncherello off of Chips, remember that? I don't know why, he never owned a BMW, he was a Harley man. But of course the RT, used by many police forces across the globe. And I can see why. If you're a copper stuck out in all weathers and you're in the motorbike section, then an RT would be a very nice place to be. Alright, now as luck would have it, I found myself coming into the back end of High Wycombe, which is usually quite busy, so it'll be a little chance to try her out once again, see if we can try her out in some traffic. Yeah, it's not a warm day out here today. I think I'm going to turn the old grips and seat up a bit, and they're very adjustable heated seat and grips on this. I'll just hit my favourite button, there we go, that's my heated grips. I can then use the whiz wheel to put it up to max. If I hit it again, I can then get to the seat. I can turn that up to max as well. Let's see how that works. I'm actually wearing my heated gloves, but I haven't got them plugged into anything, so they're not turned on, so a bit of extra warmth wouldn't go amiss. Oh, these grips on the bike now, toasty as you like, really nice. BMW heated grips are particularly good. They go from sort of hot to lava-like, and on a cold day like today, their lava-like setting is beautiful, I can tell you. So yeah, around town, no problem when the traffic's like this. It's not a bike that I would like to filter with particularly, because it's as wide as a house, or it feels like it is. Of course, the widest part is the mirrors, so you have got a good gauge of width. But if primarily your purpose for getting a bike is to go commuting, then I think you'd look elsewhere other than the RT, but it's useful just to see what it's like in the urban environment anyway. It's certainly a commanding sort of ride, and the road presence of the bike is huge, so it's easy to be seen, so that's a good thing when you're in amongst traffic, of course. And she can be very sprightly when you want her to be as well. Let me just show you where my feet are when we come to a halt here at the traffic lights. Look, here we are. I'm 5'8" with a 32-inch inseam, and my feet are almost flat on the deck on this standard seat. Not quite. In fact, there we go. I've got my left foot now flat on the deck, heel on the floor, and this one is just on the ball of my foot. So the seat, it's not that wide, even though it's a wide bike. You can get your feet on the deck. Even a medium-sized chap like me, no issue with the height of the bike. I'll just take this opportunity to thank the guys at Bahnstormer in Maidenhead, as usual, for letting me borrow this bike. If you've not been up to the Maidenhead branch of Bahnstormer, then do go and check them out. It's worth visiting because they've got a great coffee machine and there's usually things like free biscuits. So even if you're not in the market for a bike, it's a great place to go and have a warm up and window shop. Loads of machines in there and accessories as well. Definitely worth a visit. Tell them I sent you and say hello to Aldo and Dean and the guys from me. So then, what would my summary be of the new R1250RT after this first initial impressions ride on the bike? Well, I absolutely love the RT. When I first rode one 4 years ago, I said that it was up there in the top of my wish list. If I was going to replace my GS, I would consider an RT, and that is still very much the case. If I was the sort of rider that was never going to go off-road, and I rarely do, then the RT makes an awful lot of sense. What did you spec one of these up? It's a similar sort of cost to a fully spec'd GS Adventure, so you kind of have to make your choice, I guess, as to which you'd go for. Personally, I think I would perhaps marginally favour the GS still, just because I prefer the way it looks a bit and the sort of rugged nature of it. But as I say, if you've no intention of going off-road whatsoever and you're just into long distance touring, maybe lots of motorway work, maybe 2 up, then this is the bike to go for. Superb comfort. Now with the 1250 engine with shift cam, it's got loads of go as well. Super smooth, beautifully smooth gearbox now as well, which I never thought I'd say about boxer engine BMWs. All the electronics you could possibly want, and many more besides. Things like a radio. Really comfortable. You could sit on here for hours and hours on end and you wouldn't get fatigued. It is a lovely bike, much more agile than its looks would belie. If you're in the market for a tourer, I still don't think you can beat the BMW RT, and now in its 1250, guys, even better. So there we have it. That's my initial impressions review of the new 2019 BMW R1250RT. Hope that's been of some interest to you, and if this is the first time you visited the channel, thanks very much for watching the video all the way till the end. I don't just do bike reviews, but I also do things like trips and tours. I do maintenance, how to look after your bike, product reviews, basically anything and everything to do with motorcycles. I try and cover it here on the Essendon Flyer. It'd be great to have you join me again. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done already, and that way you won't miss any of my future videos. Right, that's it for now. Look forward to speaking to you again soon. Until then, this has been the Essendon Flyer. Cheerio.